You're very welcome along to the polling station. It is the last polling station before the Cheltenham Festival, and check out the website for live updates of the draw of the big charity challenge, in which I'm involved. And if you are betting at Cheltenham, best responsibly, have a good time, and enjoy the greatest show on earth. Pretty good show is the battle for the SNP leadership, and we had a TV debate since I was last on, and the odds have changed again dramatically. This has been a really topsy-turvy market. William Kedjanyi and Paul Krishnamurty on show as ever. William, do you believe Nicola Sturgeon when she said she didn't watch the debate? It seems like a thing you'd watch if you were the ex-SNP leader.
Must say that for all I think she's generally trustworthy, I doubted that claim quite a lot. No, I'm pretty sure she watched it. I don't think she'd be tremendously pleased with how things are going in terms of the general position the SNP are in. It's become already really very messy, and it was pretty brutal. Some very large punches were thrown. We've not had too much polling since then. It was only a couple of nights ago. The main thing I sort of picked up was that I think, generally speaking, Humza Yousaf might be better placed in terms of where the membership is at, but there are more than enough don't knows still that things like the hustings, etc., will matter between now and when the voting opens next week. There's still a long way left to go. The first polling showed us that we had, I think it's about 25 to 30% don't knows. That's more than enough to swing the race in either person's favour. I'd be favouring Humza just at this point.
Yeah, 4-6 versus 5-4. Ash Regan 16-1. We all admire, I suppose, honesty in politics. Paul, it does seem a little bit odd, and I completely respect Nicola Sturgeon. If she were asked what are her views on the leadership contest, she can say, "I'm not going to comment on that. I'm gonna have a fair battle here and let them fight it out among themselves." And they certainly did fight it out. This was. It was compelling TV, maybe, but not necessarily compelling if you're a fan of Scottish independence, if I were to go that far, because it just didn't shine that well on the two main candidates necessarily.
No, and I think Scottish independence is in total crisis. I think that this has exposed that the SNP aren't really a unified party, that the coalition they have got is built around one issue, which doesn't transcend all the other things, but. Equally, they're divided on strategy. I've backed Humza Yousaf. I'm inclined to think that it's probably a really good bet, but I'm being put off having a really big bet because of the uncertainty about who the members are, how many of them there are, whether the sample in these polls is accurate or not, because a very large number of people joined the party after the 2014 independence referendum, right? And clearly, in that 9-year period, the SNP have positioned themselves as the liberal left party, the Remainer party of Scotland, right? They pick up the young vote. They pick up people who in England would be generally attracted towards Labour. And the opposition to that, being Kate Forbes and Ash Regan and let's say Alex Salmond, for example, is really electorally it's a road to nowhere. It may well represent a lot of the older members, especially the ones who are kind of live in more outlying areas, a bit more socially conservative, right? But if that is the SNP, then they will go back to being a minority party very quickly, and we will soon find ourselves in the position we were in 10, 15 years ago, where it was like a third, a quarter of Scots who were into independence, and it was just a pipe dream. Also, the 30% undecided, I wonder just how much of that is solid SNP supporters who are on the left generally, but who have doubts about Humza Yousaf, given all the controversy that he's been in. But I just think that as the thing goes on, he's way ahead in terms of endorsements from MPs and MSPs. And I think that matters. I think that the local representative and their endorsement and what they do during these hustings and during this critical period will matter, and it will take him over the line.
Who do you think won the debate, William?
That's a toughie. I think it was honestly a pretty even thing, but it was a messy punch up. I don't think anybody particularly won out of it. because both candidates had their biggest flaws put on show. Humza's government record is going to be a problem should he win for the SNP longer term. And Forbes sort of has the opposite of that in the sense that, generally speaking, she's approved pretty well by wider votes in Scotland. This is outside the SNP leadership. But again, her issues are a problem for this campaign. And again, it would depend on the social makeup of SNP voters, Paul has pointed out, but it being pointed up again and again is not great. And Ash Regan is getting a lot of media play, but she doesn't seem to be able to get a cut in. And her campaign seems to be going nowhere. So I don't think anybody won.
I suppose, you know, Yousaf accused if you're going for Kate Forbes, you're essentially going to the right. But you know, I think she was out to something like 100 to 30 after her comments about, you know, the gay marriage referendum and so forth. But she has seemed to rally since. So why is this not the death knell to her challenge? Because a lot of those polled obviously don't mind that, or at least respect the fact that she has her own opinions on these things.
I think you've got to always be wary of overstating engagement of the public, of poll respondents, the large number of people who are unknowns. You know, a lot of Kate Forbes' support might well be, in those polls, might be very superficial. She's a relatively new face. She's seen as a rising star. That was the case before all the controversy over her social views. And so that gets you a certain amount in the initial poll before, you know, we get into the detail in the hustings, before those divisions become clearer. And like I say, it wouldn't surprise me in the lead. Not a lot would surprise me here, but it wouldn't surprise me equally if Yousaf won this decisively in the end. Once.
Why so?
Because, as I say, there's a large number of undecideds. I think it's a perfect legitimate position for a solid SNP supporter, right, who supports all their policies, including gay marriage and gender reform. But those people to be initially sceptical about Humza Yousaf because he starts with a very negative brand nationally. He's had a lot of controversy. But as the contest takes place, they're going to probably, if they engage, realise they have to choose between two very different competing visions. This isn't just a personality contest, not just a beauty contest. This is about the direction of the party, the positions of the party, and of independence. And I think that on that front, Humza Yousaf, being the only continuity Sturgeon candidate in the race, is in an amazingly strong position.
And like, William, do you think, is there any sense that Nicola Sturgeon regrets what she's done now?
If there is, it's not being broadcasted in the public, but I definitely believe all the senior people backing independence are not happy with how the race has gone, mainly because I think it's exposed. It's exposed two things. It's sort of shown just how far clear Sturgeon was. I mean, in general, I thought that of her as a politician compared with most UK politicians, but the gulf between her and the rest of the SNP government is vast, and that's been exposed. And I think there'll definitely be many who are regretting it, namely because it looks as if there's an air of unreadiness, really, about the campaign. And I think, in general, it's getting really rather messy. You know, this is almost Tory level sort of infighting, and because of the nature of voting in Scotland, the SNP wouldn't need to go too far back to lose quite a lot of seats. This is at Holyrood and also Westminster. So, yeah, it is pretty rocky for them at the moment.
So, say if Yousaf does win, then can he sort of continue that sense of, I guess, solidarity and kind of one message hegemony that the party had, or is it going to be exposed as being effectively kind of held together by Nicola Sturgeon, or, you know, essentially by this want for Scottish independence? Is he going to be able to kind of maintain that in the party if he gets the job?
I think it's far more likely that it's not. I think it's far more likely, basically, that things split to a certain degree, namely because Sturgeon was just so good at doing it, and also because I think the campaign will expose some pretty big tensions, I think, that were being held together under the surface. He's got a job on, basically.
How do you call it from here then, William?
I have Yousaf still just ahead. I think the market's pretty right. I think he's better placed with what our idea of the membership is. But I don't think there's no great scope for any massive slip-ups, etc. But that said, in terms of his media performances, in terms of his debating, he seems pretty steady. I don't think he's liable for, big disaster moments, and I think he'll just about make it. I expect it to be close though.
So, Paul, if you're pricing Scottish independence within the next 10 years, how do you price it now?
10 years. Okay. I'd go 2 to 5 no, 7 to 4 yes.
Okay, that is fair enough. And if you want to be Mystic Meg, it's just been announced that Mystic Meg has passed away at the age of 80. So she's not going to be taking a call on it as well. It's all very interesting as well in Northern Ireland because obviously the protocol looks like it's going to be brought over the line. I don't know if you've been following this so much, William, but it's left those who want kind of a united Ireland in an interesting place, because Northern Ireland in some respects is now getting the best of both worlds with access to both markets. And it's also left the DUP in a strange place because the DUP has to kind of waffle that it's gotten what it wanted here all along and return to Stormont. But of course, that isn't really the case.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, it shows two things. First of all, I think it shows the glory of the initial deal pre-referendum, which is that everybody got the best of both worlds. But credit where it's due to Sunak and the government, he's managed to pull off something pretty impressive here, considering the circumstances. There's going to be a lot of pressure now on everybody to return to Stormont for two reasons. Number one, should they do that and they get the benefit of the Windsor framework, it's a massive investment pool, being able to be in both markets. And as you know, a lot of companies have come and invested and made Ireland their home. There's the possibility of that for the North too. Potentially businesses from the US wanting to invest to both worlds. Regarding the DUP getting what they wanted in their movements on this, I think this goes back a bit further in the sense that they got sold out a lot by Boris Johnson, and his sort of lack of attention to detail, his sort of electioneering, I think, put them in a really difficult place. As to whether Stormont returns or when it returns, I don't know. But I think the pressure on it to happen will be greater than ever now from all areas.
Yeah, I think, Paul, William's right there. I mean, Rishi Sunak has actually done quite a good job here. He's done it without a great deal of fanfare. We'll see how it works out. But considering the oven-ready mess of Boris Johnson's initial protocol, there are some brownie points for Rishi here.
Definitely. I think I think he's done a great job on that, and I think that it represented the kind of triumph of serious politics over populism, of someone who has attention to detail. And here's the thing: I mean, as he was doing it, within 24 hours, 48 hours, I was thinking this might be a turning point. This might be the start of a way back for the Tories to at least respectability. But then by the end of the week, it's all been completely destroyed, because the harsh reality is, and this is the truth about Northern Ireland, this is a subject I've studied at university, very interested in, right? It doesn't cut through in England. It's amazing. It's this whole argument about like it being part of the UK. Well, it would be a stronger case if the rest of the UK paid any attention to it. And it doesn't. And that story, it doesn't, anecdotally, it didn't cut through. No one I speak to, none of my, non-politico friends really mentioned it, were that interested, right? They're far more interested in Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages, right? And then, of course, we had the nonsense with the Sue Gray conspiracy theories, which, the whole thing, that's just a whole episode in itself. That I think it was a ridiculous thing for Starmer to do or to announce, a really terrible strategy. But actually, whether he meant it or not, it served Labour very well, because it got Sunak's deal and competence off the front page and got Boris Johnson, these crazy conspiracy theorist friends, back on the telly. So, again, that's Sunak's problem. He's stuck with a legacy. He's got a 13-year legacy to deal with, and a bunch of absolute crazies in his own party who don't have any discipline. Yeah,
and it was interesting to see as well. He's the ex-PR chief at Downing Street calling Boris's last 24 hours a bull through a shop as well, William. Boris is kind of still hovering around in the background, albeit he's a bull caged in a field at the moment.
Yeah, he is. There's a lot of lashing out, but it's all, I think, for irrelevance. I think the comeback sort of really been stunted by a couple of things. I mean, I never really believed in it being on, to be honest with you. I still think if you can lay Boris next Tory leader, then do it, almost any price. But the Windsor framework sort of exposes the folly of all his Brexit intention and shows what somebody semi-serious can do. And the Sue Gray stuff, it was a big trap that he fell into and his acolytes fell into. And I don't think I don't think Starmer and Labour were thinking strategically that far ahead. It's just that they couldn't resist the ability to sort of go with this grievance narrative regarding Partygate. And the big problem with Partygate is the images. It's the actual evidence. You can scream until the cows come home about Sue Gray this and civil servants are on the left that or whatever, but then you just look at the photos of him being like actually having a right old piss up, and then you look at the WhatsApps of number 10 comms chiefs basically knowing it was going to come out anyway. And yeah, he's pretty done on that front. Just regarding Sue Gray, I've been in two minds of this. I think a really important point Paul noted earlier is this stuff, it's probably, I don't think they were necessarily considering this, it's probably not going to cut through for that much or that long. So it's probably a hit they can take. I mean, I personally think the better move would have been to get a sort of West Wing Downing Street style operator for chief of staff and then make Sue Gray cabinet secretary. But Starmer is very much intent on getting a proper machine going. So I see why he's done it. I don't think it's been particularly well executed, but I see why he's done it.
Just briefly, William, he's definitely ridden out the storm in a sense, Regis. He's 5-1 to go this year, 10-11, and 6-4, which is now, very close second favourite, 20-25 or later. So I think we asked for marks out of 10 as to how he's getting on, but he's kind of kept a fractured party somewhat in line anyway.
Yeah, he's done the best he can with the tools he got, which in terms of party discipline, etc., and like competence is like almost nothing. So I guess he gets sort of the due credit for that. In terms of that market option, I might lean towards 10-11 on 2024. I think they'll try and run it out as long as it's possible. But I think I've heard rumours that CCHQ are planning for something maybe late next year. And if also Sunak wants to start getting improvements and movements in the right direction on, say, economic growth, etc., then they may think it might be better to sort of strike when they're ahead. But I wouldn't have a particularly strong view on it. I believe the direction of travel is still not for changing.
So it's Cheltenham next week. What are you two up to?
Gambling in front of the telly, basically. Putting a nice place put on in the morning and enjoying it.
Living the dream. What about you, Will?
All action for Star Sports with lots of the offerings we have. We have our Cheltenham knockout tipping competition. The draw for that will have taken place by the time you see this. I'm tremendously excited. I'm sure there'll be a lot of great ties. There'll be daily blogs from Simon Knott. There will be previews from yours truly. There'll be lots of other goodies, including our yes/no competition. This is dead simple. You go to our page, you enter your answers to 10 yes or no questions. You don't even have to know anything about racing. And when you do it, if you get a certain amount right, the winner gets a £500 free bet. You also get a chance to be entered into the daily draw, and a 20 quid free bet goes to an entrant each day. So that's tremendously exciting. And also we've got our offer of Pipped. So should you get done in a really close finish at the Cheltenham Festival next week, you get your money back if you're beaten a neck or less. And last but not least, also on that front, we've got our specials. Lots of specials. Pressbury Cup handicap. This year, the Irish asked to give 9.5, essentially 10 winners. And the market I really love shows you the level things have gotten to. Willie Mullins versus the entire UK. I think we are 10-11 Mullins to beat the entire of the home team. which really shows you the power in Claire Sutton at the moment. So yeah, lots going on next week. I'll be doing it from home, or well, we're doing it from here basically, and can't wait.
Do check out the website, and check out the website as well for the latest betting. It's a really, really topsy-turvy market. I mean, if you've played the three of them in the S&P race at the right prices, you're basically, you've greened, you're in profit at the moment, and probably lots of twists and turns for the election itself as well. We shall talk to you next week.